And these sessions, we can explore how brands can stay relevant by expanding data resources, acting on micro opportunities, and leading rather than just simply reacting to the changes. And this is going to be very interesting. Let's learn how to seal the deal in the world where nothing can be taken for granted. And for that, we are honored to welcome to the stage Mr. Anil Viswanathan, Managing Director at Mondelez to share his insights in driving consumer centricity when the consumer is uncertain. Please welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anil, and I run the Mondelez Vietnam business. I've been here for the last 2.5 years. Great, very happy to be here. Thank you, Rohit and the MMA team for inviting me. Great opening session. What I find interesting in these forums is the fact that we are able to engage and talk about topics that affect us and our business. We talk about real topics, live topics, and then discuss. We have partners, we have experts who share their views, and together we leave the day with a better perspective on how we may think about our business, how we may think about our problems. So the last time that I was here, I spoke about attribution. And what a coincidence that the first session that you spoke about, Rohit, is about, again, attribution and measurement, and how do we try and improve our ability to understand how a consumer is responding to a marketing investment, and our ability to measure that and to convince the business that it's moving a business metric. It was a live problem. It was a problem that we were facing. And it's great to see that MMA is picking that up and converting it into a white paper. Great to see BAP. And I'm sure many businesses have their own way of now, talking about attribution and measuring attribution. So great to see that. And this is a great example of how MMA uses live topics, brings in thought leadership, and provides solutions, provides cases for all of us who are working in the business. So well done, Rohit. Do take the compliments back to the MMA global team as well. Interesting also to see the Kroger example in the case. Good to see that good old storytelling still exists and moves business metrics. So it's not all bad. There's still hope for all of us old marketers who learned our ropes about storytelling and how storytelling can build brands and can grow businesses. So again, a good reassurance. So today, again, I'm going to talk about another new topic, another topic that is a live topic that is bothering all of us, troubling all of us, giving us sleepless nights. And that's really about, maybe even a step before attribution, is really about how the consumer is behaving today. We are representing the CPG industry. We pride ourselves that we keep the consumers in front of us. We believe that as organizations, as marketers, we know the consumer best. But do we really know our consumers? And are we really able to keep consumers at the center of everything that we do when the world around us is changing so rapidly? So when the consumer himself or herself is so uncertain about what's happening around them, and that is making them to behave in a very unpredictable way, then how may we think about consumer centricity? What do we do? How can we really understand what the consumer is doing and then take action to impact the consumer for our brands? It is a big challenge, and that's really what I want to talk to you about and maybe trigger this conversation. I do see in the agenda a lot of interesting solutions in the way we are deploying marketing investment, and to all of those people, I like to pose this problem to say, okay, you have these solutions. Let's try and understand the business problem and let's try and map the two. So let's talk about this. What's the challenge today? What's making things uncertain? Clearly, we are living in highly unpredictable times, aren't we? I don't think any of us are able to really raise our hands and say, yes, I know what's going to happen tomorrow. I think we've always been, in the more recent past, been exposed to a world which is very volatile. which is very unpredictable. But I think the context today has changed even further. And that's because the level of unpredictability and the scale of impact that this unpredictability is having is tremendous. It is not impacting one country, it is not impacting one particular group of people, it's impacting the entire globe. And sitting in some corner of the world, we are getting impacted, the consumer is getting impacted. So the first point to acknowledge is the fact that the level of change and the scale of change is significantly higher than we have seen in the past, right? So context is highly unpredictable. And what does that mean? Given the scale of change is so unpredictable, really forecasting and predicting what the consumer is going to do is getting even more difficult. It's almost become a coin toss to say, so what are we going to see? What are you going to see in April? What's the consumer going to do? Is he going to buy, not going to buy? Yeah, it's becoming a coin toss. And we are seeing, and those of you who are involved in forecasting, those of you who are involved in trying to predict basis the level of investment, basis historical data, what the future is going to be in terms of revenues, I can only share my commiserations, all the best. So it is getting very, very difficult to forecast. So it's a situation where you're not able to forecast, it's a context that is highly volatile. So what does that do to the consumer? And what's happening to the consumer? I think clearly two things are happening to the consumer. Consumer confidence has taken a big, big beating. And as a result of that, we're seeing that the consumer is behaving very differently. Now, when we came through COVID, I think we all felt that, okay, there was a big change, and we see that the consumer has, it's like a one in a lifetime event. It's kind of a black swan event, and we've seen that, that's created some change to consumer behavior. And we thought, okay, that's over. Now it's we're back in 2022. Things are all fine. But what we're seeing over the last 2 years is that this level of volatility and this level of uncertainty is just here to stay. It's no longer just an event. Over the last year, we saw all the geopolitical tensions and what the wars did and what uncertainty it created. And today, in the current context, what we are seeing with all the tariffs and all of that, again, a situation where it seems like this context of things constantly going to be in a state of turmoil is becoming the new reality that the consumer is having to grapple with. So it's no longer just one event, a small period of time where the consumer had to do a few things differently. But what I'm trying to say is that now we are in a situation where it's a constant state of turmoil. And as a result of that, it's making the consumers to make choices very differently from the way they were making choices in the past. It's not just adapting to one event, but it's really a long-term change in the way the consumer is responding to the situations. And the first obvious response is the fact that they're no longer confident about the future, right? So all of us, and that's true for all of us as consumers, right? If we ask ourselves, are we clearer about what we're going to do tomorrow? Where do you want to invest our dollar? And what do we see? Okay, play safe, let's go for gold, yeah? So I think we're seeing that happen. So I think the provocation that I want to leave with all of you is the fact that in this context, it's no longer a period of time that we want to map. What's that period of time, what that event in that particular period of time going to impact the consumer on, but it's a consistent situation of turmoil, and the consumer is hence behaving in a way with that we have to track differently. And what are the kind of changes that we are seeing in terms of the consumer? What you see on the right-hand side is things that we already know, that we see, that most of our tracking tells us. They're saving more, they're being more risk averse, they're trying to be value maximizing, they're emphasizing on health, they're emphasizing on education, they're trying to make the buck travel more, extract more, they're prioritizing their spends for the kids, etc. And all of that is something that we all know. But what I'm finding very interesting is the fact that some changes have become quite rapid, and as the consumer has adapted to the situation of turmoil, actually that's led to a significant shift in the way they've behaved. And one example that we've been discussing over the recent past is what started 16 months ago in Vietnam with the whole Decree 400 and, people being fined if they were found drinking and driving. And that started a trend. And actually that trend is now settled into a significant behavior shift that we are seeing in Vietnam. We are seeing consumers really spending much lesser outside and spending more inside. And you're seeing the trend of it impacting not just one brand or not just one category, but a multiple set of categories. So this is a great example, and I'm sure Venus is smiling given the fact that now there's a lot of movement from alcobev to non-alcobev. But that's just one example. I'm saying we're just seeing, and this is an example of how a small change, which is a decree, resulted in the consumer adapting themselves, and what we thought is an adaptation has actually led to a permanent behavior shift. And this permanent behavior shift has led to a significant change in the way some categories are getting consumed and some brands are getting consumed. So as marketers and business owners, if we don't understand this, we're actually seeing our business results move. We are seeing our metrics don't move in terms of our brand disposition, our brand equity, a response to our advertising. But there's a much more fundamental behavioral shift that's happened. And if you don't tap into that, we are not able to understand what we have to do as a brand and how do we respond and how do we respond quickly before it becomes a fundamental behavior shift. And suddenly you find yourself as a consumer, as a brand or a company, much more different in your relationship with the consumer than you were just about 6 months back. So that's the provocation for all of us, that if we do not read the consumer well enough, our standard existing long-term tracks may not be able to identify the fact that behavior is changing. And my input to all of you is the fact that we find the behavior changes coming more rapidly and at a much larger scale of impact to our businesses. And hence we are seeing some businesses dramatically gain and some businesses dramatically drop. A recent case study that we speak to as our industry colleagues is in the area of coffee. And you see how dramatic shift is happening from the amount of coffee that a Vietnamese consumer is drinking in a cafe to the explosion that you're seeing in instant coffee. And as a category, it's growing at high double digits, right? So it's a great opportunity and yet great risk. And that's the challenge we have, to say that, yeah, we pride ourselves as keeping the consumers central to us, but are we able to read it? Are we able to correlate consumption with upper funnel metrics well enough? And my provocation is, and my experience is that no, it's difficult. And we are not able to say, okay, all my upper funnel metrics are solid. My brand power is super strong, but I'm seeing consumption not move. And that's because something fundamental is changing with the consumer in the way they are behaving with our brands and categories. So hence, how do we track behavior change? And if you operate within the confines of our category, our segments, then the gain-loss assessment is pure noise. It doesn't give us, actually sends us in the wrong direction in terms of where we want to deploy our dollars, and we are not getting our ROIs. What we are also seeing is the challenge of not being able to spot and leverage some of these changes in the short term. And hence, relying on our traditional data sources is not really helping us solve or track and impact consumer behavior in an effective manner. So in a situation where there is a lot of turmoil, where there's a lot of uncertainty, where we are not able to predict consumers and what they do, and our regular data tracks are not helping us, what solution do we have? So what do we do? And this is my experience, our experience in Mondelez. Maybe I have 2 ideas to share, 2 provocations to share. There are 2 things we can do, and maybe both those options are viable. One is to listen, and listen more deeply, look for more data, look for more different kinds of data, leverage all the new tech that's available to say, can I listen more and can I interpret more? Can I expand my sources of data? Or the converse provocation, there's just too much noise, don't waste your time, don't even listen. Don't listen, but lead. And both answers are interesting answers for us, and we are seeing good results in both. None of them is really a silver bullet, but they are provocations of what we could do differently. So let me tell you the first example, which is more in the area of listening. And we've been going through, as an organization, both in Vietnam and globally, through a large digital transformation that we've been doing in our business over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and that's yielding good results to us. And what's the digital transformation doing for us? Two things. I mean, all kinds of data. We are definitely seeing the value in expanding the level or the sources of data that we can leverage. And the sources of data both at a customer end and at a front end in terms of consumer and in terms of the middle with our retailers. So the first example I have is with our partners in Nielsen, where we feel that there's a great opportunity in getting to greater level of granularity in the way we look at our market and way we look at our data. So along with Nielsen, we've embarked on this journey of what Nielsen calls precision areas. So we don't look at regions, we don't look at cities, we don't look at urban, rural. We've gone into what we call precision areas. There are 256 precision areas where we're able to break down our performance, the performance of our brands, performance of our categories, to understand how we may break down micro trends. So again, because reading data is difficult, the more we look at aggregated data, less effective is the outcome. So we're seeing value in disaggregating this data. Disaggregating this data available from Nielsen, that is secondary data, marrying it with primary data, which is our internal sales data that we have got over a long period of time, and then also marrying it with what we can do with the consumer in the top of the funnel, and focusing on specific, almost postcode level actions that we can take for our brands. And the next step that we see here logically is what we can do with our advertising money as well. And that's the work that we're doing with our partners in Wavemaker. So great opportunity to go deeper in the way we collect data and the way we marry data, both inside and outside our organization, for specific impact. And the second example is the large-scale consumer digital transformation that we've been doing in Mondelez, where we have articulated for ourselves a specific end-to-end solution to improve the quality of data that we are collecting from our consumers, and not just relying on purely second and third party, but also overlapping that and mirroring that or reinforcing that with a strong first party program, which allows us to collect, acquire, enrich, and leverage and monetize data that we are collecting at scale from consumers. Both of these come at significant investments. None of it comes free, as you know. I mean, it's quite difficult to collect consumer data, but we are seeing significant value of collecting this data and then leveraging it, marrying it with all that secondary data sources we've got to get a clearer opportunity to address, personalize at scale, and possibly strengthen our control on the entire consumer funnel from the top to the bottom. So two ways that we are seeing that we can definitely influence and read and influence and interrupt the consumer journey in a more effective way than what we were doing in the past, requiring significant investments both on the sales side of the system as well as on the consumer side of the system. So this is an example that we are seeing giving us significant returns in terms of reading, and we do believe that, and I do believe that investing in collecting more and more data is the way forward if you want to get better at predicting what the consumer is doing. Let's move to the second provocation, and the second provocation that I want to have for you is that given many of us here are managing large brands that consumers love, we also have the opportunity to lead our consumers and inspire our consumers. As we know, classically, the consumer sometimes does not know what he or she wants. And I want to share an example of how there is a situation or there's an opportunity where large brands have the ability to influence behavior rather than wait for consumers to, or rather than follow the consumers in the current context. So, speaking about uncertainty, speaking about the challenges of the consumer not willing to spend so much, what we are seeing is in the large festivals, both the Mid-Autumn Festival and in Tet, the consumer is spending lesser. So one way to respond is to say, okay, consumer is spending lesser, so my ROI is going to be challenged, I need to invest more, but I need to acknowledge the fact that the consumer is spending lesser. Or alternatively, as a large brand in the country, say, No. I want to inspire the consumer to rethink his decision. I want to inspire the consumer to say, hey, you know what? This is a very important moment in your life. And you know what? Don't stop spending. You need to spend because it's important. So that's the opportunity, again, we've got to say, rather than listen and say, okay, this is what the data is telling me, can I still believe that through authentic storytelling and through more purposeful work, can a large brand actually influence and lead the consumer? So rather than just pick up a simple point on advertising in the Mid-Autumn Festival, we have embarked on a long journey. We know that it's going to be a long journey of driving consumer behavior change during the Mid-Autumn Festival by having a very audacious dream, which has got nothing to sell, nothing directly linked to selling mooncakes. And that's by having the dream that one day the government will announce that the Mid-Autumn Festival Day is a holiday. Today it's not a holiday. Until the time it's not a holiday, we believe that consumers are not going to spend as much time celebrating with mooncakes. So it's a brave dream. It's a dream that we know is going to take a long time. But it's at the end of 2 years, we feel very proud of what we've been able to do in terms of driving and leading the consumer and believing that we can drive behavior change by investing behind something which is purposeful and meaningful. So let me show you a video and share with you our journey in the way we have tried to influence behavior change, leading rather than listening.
Những ánh trăng thì vẫn còn ở ngoài sân. Những ngọn đèn lồng vẫn sáng lập lòe trong ngõ phố. Những bài hát thời thơ ấu về chú cuội vẫn vang lên. Dù tiết trung thu ấy có chút khác xưa, nhưng niềm vui của trẻ thơ phải được lưu giữ nguyên vẹn. Như lần đầu tiên tuổi thơ tôi nhìn thấy vầng trăng và một chú cuội già.
In Vietnam, the Mid-Autumn Festival is the second largest celebration, fondly known as the Tet of Children. For generations, it's the time for kids to join lantern parades, for laughter fills the air, and families gather under the moon, carving unforgettable memories. But today, the tradition is fading, not in adults, but in children. As it is not recognized as a national holiday, adults are busy working all day, and children are losing their magical experiences in the festival made just for them. At Kinh, our mission has always been keep stories alive to connect generations. That's why we sparked a nationwide conversation with our One Day Off campaign in 2023. This year, we took it further, reminding people of the festival's true meaning and calling them to join in one day off for future generations. We know it's our job to ignite the magic and the imagination of how beautiful the Mid-Autumn Festival can be. So we believed nothing could do it better than a 50-year-old song about the festival and a music video taking us through all of its beauty across generations and ending with a pure desire to experience this magical day from a child. The MV, which achieved 4 million views after 2 days released, and other online assets invited audiences to visit our microsite, where we continued the pledge for one day off and invited people to tag their companies. Then Kinh would send invitation letters to the most mentioned companies, asking them to give employees a day off to celebrate with their children. The campaign sparked a nationwide movement, rallying communities, influencers, and media to return the festival to its rightful owner. Taking our promise further for the first time, Kinh hosted a signing ceremony with the government for a 3-year commitment to preserve this tradition for future generations. Our efforts were warmly embraced by every Vietnamese. Over 500,000 people pledged to take a day off to celebrate with their children, and 990 companies were tagged. Kinh became the most talked about name during the season, resulted in a record-breaking revenue, and we cemented our leadership in the market. Most importantly, the magic of the Mid-Autumn Festival has been passed on to the children, who will carry the same mission of keeping stories alive for generations to come.
Tiếp thư đề nghị luôn hả bố mẹ?
So I guess, thank you. So I guess the message here is the fact that, we have 2 ways to address the problem that we have in front of us. Firstly, acknowledging the fact that there's a lot of change happening, and for us to acknowledge, internalize, and be clear that unless we change the way we read the consumer, we might miss significant shifts that we are seeing in the way the consumer is interacting with brands and categories. And having acknowledged that, we have two approaches. One is pursue the case for deep data and set up our organizations, set up our brand systems, set up our ecosystems in a way that we can read this data. And in parallel, continue to believe that as big brand owners, we can inspire trust and lead consumers. I think as Venus said in her opening chat, it's about how we leverage our entire ecosystem. And that's what MMA allows us. So I'm using this platform also to thank all the members of my ecosystem, of our Mondelez ecosystem, our partners, our agency partners, our creative agency partners, our media partners, working together in this journey to strengthen the way we read our consumers and inspire our consumers to use our brands and categories in the way we believe is more purposeful for them. So thank you. That was my chat. Have a good rest of the day. Looking forward to the forward sessions. Thank you.